All right, so get this. We're diving deep into a case today, the unsolved death of Stephen Smith.
Oh, this one's a tough one. Heartbreaking for sure.
It really is. We're working off an article from Investor. It's titled The Unsolved Case of Stephen Smith, a story of loss, mystery, and the pursuit of justice.
Investor. Always good for a deep dive.
They really dig deep, yeah. So Stephen Smith, 19 years old, aspiring doctor from Hampton County, South Carolina, found dead on a rural road back in 2015.
2015, that's, wow, quite a while ago now.
It is, and it's the kind of case that just sticks with you. Things just don't add up. Initially, they said hit and run. But think about this. There is no evidence to back that up. No skid marks, no broken glass, no debris, nothing.
See, that's where those red flags start popping up. Makes you wonder, was it really an accident? Or is there something more to this story, something darker?
Well, that's what we're here to figure out. We're going to unpack all the details, the conflicting narratives, the rumors, everything, and try to make sense of this tragedy.
Unraveling those mysteries, that's the real challenge, especially when you're dealing with a case that's been cold for so long. Memories fade, evidence gets lost, and sometimes the truth gets buried under layers of time and speculation.
Yeah, and in this case, there are a lot of layers, and we're going to peel them back one by one. But before we get into all that, let's talk about Stephen himself. Who was he? What kind of person?
Yeah, let's paint a picture of this young man. From what I've gathered, Stephen, he was an exceptional individual. Even from the very beginning, he faced challenges. Born premature, alongside his twin sister, he defied the odds. A true fighter from day one.
Wow, born premature. That must have been tough.
Yeah, definitely adds a layer of resilience to his story. And that resilience carried through his whole life. He was described as bright, compassionate, always putting others first, driven by this deep desire to help people.
I've heard that he wanted to be a doctor.
Exactly. That was his dream. He was already on that path, studying nursing, juggling life between his parents' homes, working hard towards that goal. A real go-getter.
It makes it even more tragic, then, finding him dead in the middle of a rural road late at night. It's hard to reconcile that image with this ambitious, driven student.
You're absolutely right. It just doesn't fit. And this is where the cracks in the official story start to show. The article describes a gash on Stephen's forehead and other injuries that just don't align with a typical hit and run.
A gash on his forehead. What else? What kind of injuries are we talking about?
Well, enough to make you question how a simple glancing blow from a vehicle could cause that kind of damage. Think about it. The force needed to inflict those injuries while someone is walking, that's significant. It just raises questions about what really transpired that night.
That's a good point. It makes you wonder if maybe there was more to it than just a car accident.
Exactly. And then you have Sandy Smith, Stephen's mother, entering the picture. She's been adamant from day one that her son was murdered, couldn't accept the idea of him walking in the middle of the road at night. Her gut feeling, coupled with the lack of evidence for a hit and run, it's a potent combination.
A mother's intuition is powerful, though. I mean, you can't discount that completely.
Absolutely. It's often a driving force in these kinds of cases. It's that refusal to accept the easy answer, that unwavering belief that pushes investigations forward, especially when things seem to be stalling.
It's like that saying, a mother knows. Sometimes you just can't explain it. It's just a feeling.
Yeah, exactly. And in this case, it set Sandy Smith on a long and difficult path, battling for answers, demanding a deeper look into her son's death. Years she spent raising awareness, pushing for an independent investigation, refusing to let Stephen's case fade into obscurity.
So she wasn't going to let this just go away. She was determined to get to the bottom of it.
Oh, absolutely. She's a force to be reckoned with. And her persistence really underscores how sometimes an ordinary person can challenge those in power. She didn't have wealth or influence, but she had something far more potent: a mother's love and an unyielding determination.
That's powerful. It's that kind of spirit that can sometimes make all the difference. And speaking of power, this is where things take a turn towards those small-town dynamics. The Murdochs, you've heard of them, right?
The Murdochs, of course. A name that carries a lot of weight in Hampton County. Decades of prominence and influence. It's the kind of deep-rooted power that can complicate investigations, especially when there's even a whiff of a connection to a case like this.
And the whiff of a connection is putting it mildly. The article specifically mentions Alex Murdoch's son, Buster.
Oh yeah, Buster. There's a whole lot of speculation surrounding him.
He's entangled in rumors and speculation around Stephen's death. While he's denied any involvement, those whispers, they just keep circulating, adding another layer of intrigue to an already perplexing case. It's like we're watching a small-town thriller unfold in real time.
It is, isn't it? You've got a suspicious death, a determined mother fighting for justice, and a powerful family shrouded in rumors. It's a recipe for speculation and distrust, and raises questions about whether the truth can truly surface when you have those kinds of power dynamics at play.
It makes you think about all those stories about small towns with secrets, doesn't it? Where things aren't always as they seem.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this case so compelling. It's a reminder that justice isn't always a straightforward path. There are often obstacles, roadblocks, and sometimes the truth is hidden in plain sight. But it's up to us to keep searching, to keep asking questions, and to demand answers.
Well said. We're just getting started, though. There's so much more to unpack in this case. But I think it's clear that Stephen Smith's story is one that deserves to be told, and his fight for justice is one that we should all be paying attention to.
Agreed. And I have a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are secrets buried deep in Hampton County. We're going to do our best to unearth them. Buckle up, folks. This is going to be a wild ride. This whole case with Stephen Smith just shows how tough it can be to, find the truth when you're dealing with powerful people, especially in a small town.
Yeah.
It's like David and Goliath almost.
Right. Imagine the pressure in a place like Hampton County. I bet folks are hesitant to speak up, if they think it might rock the boat, especially if it involves a family like the Murdochs.
Oh, for sure. Fear of what might happen, social backlash, economic hardship. They can silence people real quick. It's a tough spot to be in.
It makes you wonder how many cases like Stevens are out there, where the truth gets buried because people are afraid to speak up.
I'd say more than we'd like to think. But that's why it's so important to shed light on these stories, to show that, hey, justice can prevail, even when it seems impossible.
Okay, so back to the investigation. SLED reopens the case. In 2021, they decide it's a homicide now, not a hit and run. And then they exhume Stephen's body for a second autopsy. That's a pretty big deal, right? Why go to all that trouble after so many years?
It shows you how much forensic science has advanced. Back in 2015, the technology was nowhere near what it is now.
So they're hoping to find something they missed the first time around.
Exactly. Maybe a tiny piece of evidence, something they couldn't see before, new tools, new techniques. It's like getting a second chance to crack the code.
I remember the article mentioned that gash on Stephen's forehead. Could the second autopsy tell us more about that with all the new technology?
Oh, that gash. That's a key piece of the puzzle. The original report said it was from a car, but there wasn't any other evidence to support that. Now they can use things like 3D imaging, really analyze those fracture patterns in the skull, figure out if it was from a blunt object or something else entirely.
It's like forensic science is getting so advanced, it's almost like a TV show. But can we really expect answers after so much time?
Time can be a challenge, yeah. Evidence degrades. But there's always a chance. Maybe a tiny fiber stuck in the wound, some trace of soil, or a plant that could link Stephen to a specific place, or even a person. You never know.
It's all about the details, isn't it? Those tiny things that can make or break a case. Will we get to hear about the results of the second autopsy, do you think?
Hard to say. Sometimes they keep those things quiet while the investigation is ongoing. But with all the attention on this case, especially with Sandy Smith pushing so hard, maybe there'll be some pressure to release the findings. It's a story that's grabbed everyone's attention.
You can't help but root for Sandy Smith, She just never gave up. It's inspiring.
It really is. She shows us what it means to fight for what you believe in, to never back down, even when the world seems against you.
She's like a symbol of hope, isn't she? Proof that one person can make a difference.
Exactly. And in cases like this, where power can make things so complicated, that kind of persistence is crucial. It's what keeps the case alive, makes people pay attention, forces them to question what they thought they knew.
We've got this new autopsy, hopefully some new information, and we've got Sandy Smith still fighting. What do you think? What's next for Stephen's case? Are we finally going to get answers?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There are so many moving parts in a case like this. The evidence, the legal system, it's all interconnected. But one thing's for sure. The fight for justice for Stephen Smith, it's not going away. Whether it's the autopsy results, new witnesses coming forward, or just the sheer pressure from people demanding answers, this story isn't over yet.
This case has become a national story. Why do you think that is? Why are we all so drawn to unsolved mysteries like this, especially when it involves a young person with their whole life ahead of them?
I think it's that basic human desire for justice. We want to believe that good triumphs over evil, that things get set right in the end. But in reality, it's rarely that simple.
So it's like, we need to have faith that even when things are dark, there's a chance for light to shine through, that someone will be held responsible, that the truth will win out.
Exactly. And that hope, That's what keeps these cold cases alive, keeps investigators looking, keeps families pushing, reminds us that even in the face of tragedy, it's worth fighting for what's right.
We've talked about the Murdochs, their influence in Hampton County, all the rumors surrounding them. But let's talk about the real challenges of seeking justice in a place where everyone knows everyone, where those power structures are so deeply rooted.
Small towns, they can be tricky. There's that strong sense of community, everyone's connected. But sometimes that closeness can make it harder to speak out, to challenge the way things are.
Like, you don't want to betray your community, even if you know something's wrong. So, how do you investigate a case like this without alienating the very people you're trying to help?
It's a balancing act, for sure. It takes a certain kind of investigator,
Right.
someone who's sensitive to the community but also relentless in their pursuit of the truth. Someone who's willing to follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if it leads to uncomfortable places.
And then there are all the rumors swirling around this case. From the very beginning, there's been this buzz about the Murdochs, whispers about what they might be involved in. Do you think those rumors help or hurt the investigation?
Rumors are a double-edged sword. Sometimes they can point you in the right direction, lead to new witnesses or evidence, but they can also create a lot of noise, distract from the facts, even damage people's reputations unfairly. And in a case like this, where you've got a powerful family in the spotlight, it's easy for those rumors to get out of control.
It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, right? Separating fact from fiction, trying to get to the truth while navigating all that speculation and hearsay.
Exactly. And that's where responsible reporting comes in, making sure the information is accurate, checking sources, sticking to the facts. It's about finding the truth, not sensationalizing the story.
One thing that's really stayed with me is that image of Sandy Smith burying Stephen in his nursing scrubs with his stethoscope and everything. It's such a powerful image. It's more than just a mother's love. It's about hope, about honoring someone's dreams.
It's a beautiful tribute. It says, this is who he was, this is what he was striving for. And it's a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, we can find ways to find meaning, to honor those we've lost.
It's like she's saying, even though his life was cut short, his dreams matter. His life had value.
Exactly. And that message of hope, of resilience, that's what keeps cases like Stephen's alive, even years later. It reminds us that even when the truth seems lost, the human spirit can find a way to endure. Stephen Smith's case, it really shows how hard it is to, get justice when you're up against powerful people, especially in a small town where those power dynamics are so strong.
Yeah, it's amazing how this case has unfolded. We started with what looked like a simple hit and run, but the more we dig, the more questions we have. The suspicious death scene, the lack of evidence, those rumors about the Murdochs, and then you have Sandy Smith fighting so hard for the truth. It's like a real-life thriller almost.
It's got all the elements, doesn't it? The mystery, the power struggles, the question of whether justice will be served.
And that's what keeps us hooked, right? We want to know what happens next, what the second autopsy reveals. Will anyone be held accountable? It feels like we're all invested in seeing this through to the end.
I think that's just human nature. We crave closure. We want to see order restored, especially when something so senseless and tragic happens.
But justice, that's a complicated idea, isn't it? What does justice actually look like in a case like this? Is it about someone going to jail, or is it more about uncovering the truth, even if it's painful?
That's a tough question, and everyone might have a different answer. Justice isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It's about holding people accountable, but it's also about healing and finding some sense of peace. In a case like this, where there's so much pain and so many unanswered questions, it might take all of that to truly feel like justice has been served.
You've mentioned the second autopsy a few times. What do you think they might find? Could it be the key to solving this case? Or is there a chance it won't give us the answers we're looking for?
Well, forensic science has advanced so much since 2015. There's a real chance they could find something they missed the first time around, something that could change everything.
Like what? What kind of things could they find now that they couldn't before?
Tiny traces of DNA, maybe a microscopic fiber, even a small injury they didn't see before. Those small details can sometimes make all the difference.
But even if they find something, there's no guarantee it'll be enough to bring charges. We've talked about the challenges in small towns, the influence of powerful families. Building a case that's strong enough to hold up in court, it's not easy.
Right, even with solid evidence, getting a conviction can be a long and difficult road. Proving intent, finding a motive, overcoming legal hurdles, it's all part of the process. And then there's the fact that time can work against you. Evidence can get lost, memories fade, witnesses disappear. It's a constant battle.
And yet, Sandy Smith hasn't given up. She's still fighting all these years later. How does she do it? Where does she find the strength?
Well, I think it's the love of a mother for her child. That fierce protectiveness, that absolute determination to get justice. It's a powerful force.
It's like she's driven by something bigger than herself.
And she truly believes that justice is possible. She hasn't accepted the official story. She's challenged those in power. She's rallied people to her cause. That belief, that hope, that's what keeps her going.
And her persistence has paid off, in a way. The case was reopened, they reclassified it as a homicide, they did the second autopsy. None of that would have happened if she hadn't kept pushing.
Absolutely. She's a reminder that one person can make a difference. That even when you're facing huge obstacles, even when the system seems stacked against you, you can still fight for what's right.
And her story has touched people all over the country. This case isn't just a local story anymore, it's become something bigger. It's about standing up for what you believe in, about demanding answers, about holding those in power accountable.
It's resonated with people because it taps into that basic sense of fairness. No one should be above the law no matter who they are or how much money they have. And people want to see justice done, not just for Stephen and his family, but for the sake of justice itself.
So here we are at the end of our deep dive into the Stephen Smith case, and we still have a lot of questions. Will the truth come out? Will those responsible be held accountable? Will Stephen's family finally get some peace? We can only hope.
It's a reminder that real-life mysteries aren't always neatly solved. There are often loose ends, unanswered questions, and sometimes the search for justice is a long and winding road.
What will you remember most from this case? For me, it's the strength of the human spirit, the love of a mother for her son, and the hope that even in the darkest times, the truth has a way of emerging.
Those are powerful things to hold on to. And maybe it's a reminder that even when things seem impossible, even when the fight seems too hard, it's still worth fighting for what's right.
This deep dive into the unsolved case of Stephen Smith has been a journey through grief, the pursuit of justice, and the enduring power of hope. Thank you for joining us.